You've been staring at the menu for 11 minutes. It's a sandwich place. There are 6 options. The person behind the counter is starting to look at you differently. You've already mentally eaten 3 of the sandwiches, imagined regretting 2 of them, and briefly considered just leaving. And the worst part isn't the decision. It's that some quiet part of you knows this is not really about the sandwich. It never is. If that's you, welcome. You already know what it feels like to live inside a brain that treats every decision like a threat assessment. Not just the big ones, not just the career moves and the relationship choices and the major life pivots. All of them. The reply to a text, the tone of an email, whether to say something in a meeting or stay quiet. Whether the thing you said 3 days ago landed the way you meant it, or whether it's still sitting wrong with someone who hasn't mentioned it yet. The overthinking doesn't clock out. It doesn't take weekends. And society has a very simple story about people like you. You're indecisive. You're anxious. You need to just pick something and move on. But here's what that story gets completely wrong. Overthinking is not a character flaw. It's not weakness dressed up in neurotic clothing. It is a specific cognitive style with a very specific origin. And once you understand what's actually driving it, you will never see yourself the same way again. Let's start with the brain. When most people face a decision, their brain runs a quick cost-benefit loop and lands somewhere. But the brain of a chronic overthinker doesn't do that. Research from the University of Sussex found that people who score high on what psychologists call neuroticism, a trait closely linked to overthinking, show significantly greater activity in the medial prefrontal cortex during decision-making. That's the region responsible for self-referential thinking, the part of your brain that keeps asking, what does this mean for me? What could go wrong? What am I missing? It's not broken. It's overactive. There's a difference. Psychologist Barry Schwartz spent years studying what he called the paradox of choice. His core finding was counterintuitive and uncomfortable. More options don't make people happier. They make them more anxious, more prone to regret, and less satisfied with whatever they choose. And overthinkers feel this effect more intensely than most. Every decision carries the invisible weight of all the paths not taken. The sandwich you didn't order, the job you didn't apply for, the thing you almost said. That weight is real, and it accumulates. But here's where it gets more interesting. Overthinking is not randomly distributed. It clusters in people with specific traits, high empathy, strong pattern recognition, above average intelligence. A 2015 study published in the journal Personality and Individual Differences found a significant correlation between verbal intelligence and the tendency to ruminate. The smarter you are, the more material your brain has to work with, and the more scenarios it can generate. Your overthinking brain isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what a high-capacity processor does when it hasn't been given clear parameters. It just keeps running. And there's something worth saying about the empathy piece specifically. Overthinkers are almost always thinking about more than just themselves. When they replay a conversation, they're not just checking whether they came across well. They're scanning for whether they might have hurt someone without knowing it, whether their words landed the way they intended, whether something they did.
Now, here's the part nobody talks about. For many chronic overthinkers, this pattern didn't start as a personality quirk. It started as a survival response. Environments that were unpredictable, critical, or emotionally unsafe teach children very early that thinking ahead is protection. That if you can anticipate every possible outcome, you can prevent the bad ones. The brain learns that vigilance equals safety. And then you grow up, and the environment changes, but the program keeps running. You're still scanning for threats in a room that no longer has any. The overthinking that once protected you is now the thing keeping you stuck. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, and it sits at the intersection of anxiety and intelligence in a way that most people never examine. Because from the outside, it just looks like someone who can't make up their mind. From the inside, it feels like being responsible for every possible outcome simultaneously. Here's what research on decision fatigue adds to this. A landmark study following Israeli judges found that the quality of their decisions dropped significantly over the course of a day. By the afternoon, they defaulted to the safest, easiest option almost automatically. Overthinkers experience this same fatigue, but compressed, because every decision, even a trivial one, costs real cognitive energy. By midday, the brain is running on fumes, and the overthinking gets louder, not quieter. This is why small evening decisions can feel unbearable in a way that makes no logical sense.
But here is the reframe that actually matters. The same brain that can't choose a sandwich can also see around corners. Overthinkers catch things other people miss. They identify risks before they materialize. They ask the question in the meeting that nobody else thought to ask. They are the people you want on your side when things get genuinely complicated, when the stakes are real, when the easy answer is probably wrong. The problem is never the capacity. It's that the capacity is running on everything equally, treating the sandwich with the same intensity as the actual crisis. The goal isn't to think less, it's to learn to calibrate, to recognize when the threat assessment is proportionate and when the program has gone rogue, to give yourself a decision window, a deliberate container of time, rather than an open-ended loop. Research shows that time-limited decisions, ones with a defined endpoint, reduce post-decision regret, even when the outcome is identical to a spontaneous choice. The decision isn't better. The relationship to it is. You are not someone who can't handle life. You are someone whose
Perhaps
brain
more
takes
seriously
life
than the
serious.
situation requires, but seriously nonetheless. That seriousness is not nothing. It is the thing that makes you careful, considered, and genuinely trustworthy when it counts. The overthinking is the shadow side of a mind that actually gives a damn. And in a world full of people who don't think nearly enough, that is rarer than you know. If this is the kind of psychology that finally puts words to something you felt for years, subscribe. That's what we're here for. And if this resonated, the next video on why people who feel everything too deeply are actually wired differently is going to hit you just as hard. Click it. You'll see exactly what I mean.